Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's ASAS webinar. Please use the Q&A button in the Zoom bar to submit your questions throughout the webinar discussion. You can submit these as a general question or address them to a specific panelist. I will now turn things over to our hosts for today, ASAS graduate student directors, Emily Melchior and Jerica Hall.
Great, thank you, Justin. I want to thank our panelists for being here today. They are all incredibly accomplished students that are seniors in their undergraduate career, and they're very busy, and they're taking their time to discuss this incredibly arduous process of interviewing for internships, jobs, whether it be graduate school or veterinary school or another type of school. So we really want to thank them for taking their time to be here with us today. And with that, I will let the students introduce themselves, starting with Sienna Maurer from New Mexico State University.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Sienna Maurer, like she said. I am graduating from New Mexico State in May with a major in animal science, and I'm minoring in horse management and chemistry. I did just go through the process of applying to vet school this past year for the 21-22 cycle. So I kind of just got done with all of those interviews and everything, and I was accepted into multiple schools around the US, and I have chosen to go to Washington State. So I'm really excited about that. I did go through quite a few Zoom interviews, and there was quite a few different formats. I went through ones that were you really had to know your technology, right? Because you're getting spit into different breakout rooms and everything. So I would start out in an introduction room, and then they would spit me into another breakout room with like 2 to 3 interviewers, and I would speak with them for like 20 to 30 minutes, and then maybe get bumped into another room with a student panel. Or I even had one where I was in a breakout room with student ambassadors before the interview, so they could kind of, calm my nerves and let me know everything was okay before I jumped into the interview room with my actual interviewers. Some of my successes, I think, with this was, like I said, just making sure you know what you're doing on Zoom, right? Making sure your background isn't noisy, your background isn't like catching your eye. Like this background I have right now would probably not be the best background for a Zoom interview, right? And then just, preparing yourself for the questions that they would ask you in a normal interview, looking up general science questions, general ethics of animal science, just general questions like, tell us about yourself. That's one of the hardest interview questions ever, right? So that's kind of my experience, and it was really difficult to do it over Zoom. There's a lot more preparing to do technology-wise, but it was not horrible. So those are kind of my experiences, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to try and answer some of your guys' questions today. And yes, hello.
Thank you, Sienna. Let's move to Sarah Garule from New Mexico State University as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Virdelle. I am currently a senior at New Mexico State University, and I will be graduating in May with a degree in animal science and minors in ag education and ag business. I am planning to attend Texas A&M University in the fall to pursue a master's degree in physiology of reproduction. My experiences with interviewing are both through Zoom and in person. So first I did an interview through Zoom, and then I had an in-person interview when I visited the school. So in my Zoom interview, I think it's important to remember that presentation is still important in a Zoom interview, even though they can only see like the top half of you. I think it's really important that you still look very presentable, just being aware of your background and your surroundings. Just like making sure you're not sitting in front of a window that could throw off like the lighting in your interview. Like they might not even be able to see you if you're sitting in front of a window. But just being aware of your surroundings, making sure that there's no distractions. Like pets is probably something we don't think about in a Zoom interview, or like roommates that can distract you or make noises during your interview. So those are just some things to keep in mind in a Zoom interview. And I also did do an interview when I visited the campus and interviewed in person. So something to keep in mind is that you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So it might be good to have some questions in mind that you have for them. Prepare ahead of time that these are the questions that you want answered, and they'll pretty much answer whatever questions that you have. And it's really likely that they'll ask you if you have any questions. So it's good to have those questions ready for them. So like I said, I did do my in-person interview, and I didn't feel like there was very much difference like during a pandemic than it would be in a regular interview. Obviously we had to wear masks during my visit, but I didn't experience anything that I would expect very much different than a normal interview. What else? Just be aware also, you may not be able to visit every university that you're wanting to, just depending on their COVID regulations. I know that was something that was a question for me, whether I was able to go and visit the school, but they were able to grant that permission to me. So I think it's getting better with the pandemic we're currently in right now. So I think that that won't be a problem for very much longer. But that's kind of my experience so far. I had the Zoom interview and the in-person interview, but I'm happy to answer any other questions that you guys may have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Next, we'll move to Charlie Simpson, also from New Mexico State.
Hey everyone, so I'm graduating in May with a double major in range and soil science and a double minor in ranch management and chemistry. I've been currently accepted into Texas A&M in the fall to start my doctorate program in range management and also livestock management. You know, Sienna and Sarah covered probably everything that I was going to cover. The only thing that I would kind of mention that I've struggled with is just being able to adapt. I've done Zoom interviews, phone call interviews, and in person. And I would say that really know your audience. You know, I've talked to professors, I've had other students on the call, I've had supervisors, or, you know, just kind of, I guess, a lot of staff as well. And just understanding, you know, who you're talking to, how you want to present yourself. Also, when I did my first Zoom interview, I was so nervous. I was a freshman and I didn't realize where I was sitting in the camera. So I'm pretty sure my face was right up next to it. And now that I've been there to the place that I interviewed for, they had a huge flat screen TV. So I'm sure they got to see every detail of my face. So just be aware of kind of where you're sitting. And like Sarah said, I think the biggest challenge that I've had is trying to come up with questions on the spot to ask them. And that is so important because they really expect you to have those questions, to kind of, you know, have combed through their websites or their programs and to have keywords that you might use in either your resume or when you're answering your questions. And, you know, just to show them that you're aware of what you're applying for and that you're ready to join their team. And that's pretty much all that I have to add. So thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Great, thanks, Charlie. And next we'll move to some students from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical University. So first we'll start with Sade Ford. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Like she said, my name is Sade Ford. I am currently a senior at North Carolina A&T State University. I graduate in December, so I'll be graduating hopefully with the animal science degree. I plan to go into veterinary school. I'm actually in the process of VMCAS, so selecting schools, writing essays. A couple of my experiences with interviewing mostly have been in person, but I have had a few Zoom interviews for various things. Most of my tips come with making sure, like previous panelists have said, have your questions prepared. A lot of interviewers like to see that you're engaged and you also have questions about their program. It shows you have an interest in it. Another tip would be to make sure you thank them after your interview, making sure that you're making them aware that you're thankful for the opportunity to interview with them. And also a major tip that I've learned, especially my freshman year, they taught us to, especially when you come up with a question of what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, make sure that you have an example of both of those, because interviewers like to see that you have an awareness of self and you know where you need to work and where you excel at. So yeah, those are my tips for interviewing, and I look forward to answering any more questions with you guys.
Great, thank you, Sade. We'll move to Ajahnae Wineglass, also from North Carolina A&T.
Good afternoon, everybody. Like she said, my name is Ajahnae Wineglass, and I'm actually not a senior yet. I'm a second semester junior, and my advisor asked me to do this because she thought it was so important to show kind of a transition between my now and to like all the craziness of senior year, because of everything going on, most of my interviews have been through Zoom, and I can honestly say I've gotten better with technology. And I think someone said that that really is important. And the more you do it, the more you're able to look comfortable on camera and show them that this isn't your first rodeo, that you're more comfortable with that through. I also do think somebody said presentation is important, and I believe that 100%. Yourself look to the interviewer is very important. So it always wants to be your number one thing. I also used to struggle with asking questions, but that just shows them that you're very interested and you want to also learn during your interview. It's not just you trying to impress them. You also want to learn more as much as you can anytime that you can. So I'm excited for my future interviews, with vet school and stuff. So I'm not there yet, but hearing everyone's experience just makes me even more excited to do so. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Ajahnae, for being here. Next, we have two students from Purdue University. So I'll let Lisa Kirsten Sen introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Kirsten Sen, and I'm currently a senior at Purdue University, and I am majoring in animal science with a concentration in bioscience and minoring in biology. I'm so thankful to be here with you guys, and hopefully, everyone here, including the people on the panel, can walk away from something that we talk about in this webinar. So one thing that no one here probably knows is that I'm actually a fifth-year senior. And so coming into college, I had truly no idea what direction my undergrad was going to go in, and ended up switching my major several times before I landed in the animal science department. So I know many students come into college with this same uncertainty and still have that as their undergrad career kind of comes to an end. So I just want to assure anyone who is maybe struggling with that, just like I did, that that is completely normal and perfectly okay. Things will work out in the end, and that I actually believe that my uncertainty through much of my undergrad career is actually what led me to interview and accept offers in places and make the decisions that I did. And I'm actually super, super thankful for that. So my experiences with interviewing, I've interviewed in person, I've interviewed on Zoom, over the phone, and I actually had a completely virtual interview where all of the questions were pre-recorded by people, and they just presented the video to me and then gave me 2 minutes to respond to it. And so then I submitted my video back, and that was definitely super different and not something that I had ever encountered before. So definitely something to look out for. And just one thing I would really drive home is that you just truly have to be prepared for whatever's coming, whether it is going to be a phone interview, whether it is going to be in person or virtual like that. You just have to make sure that you have done the work yourself to research that company or research that school, whatever you're applying for, and be ready to answer those kind of hit home questions that they might ask. So that virtual interview was actually an interview for vet school through the animal science program that I went through. I kind of went back and forth on vet school the absolute entire time that I was in undergrad, and took all of the vet school class, or all of the pre-vet courses that I need to take to apply. Ended up applying and was rejected. But in the end, I'm still really thankful that that's the way it happened, because I had a lot of really great and exciting undergrad research experience, and was actually able to get a paper published during my undergrad career, and have accepted a master's position at the University of Tennessee, where I will be starting this August with a focus on cattle reproductive physiology.
Great, thank you so much, Kirsten. Next, we'll move to Brandon Alley, also from Purdue University.
Thank you, Emily. And kind of like we said earlier, it's so neat being on this call and on this panel with a lot of other super qualified students and seniors and juniors as well. So super neat to be here, and thanks for having me today. But I guess just a little bit of background about myself. My name is Brandon Alley. I'm a senior at Purdue University studying animal sciences with a concentration in agribusiness, and then a minor in food and agribusiness management. My pathway looks a little bit different than some people here, as I've heard. Upon graduation here in a short couple weeks, kind of scary, I will be joining a broiler operation full-time as a broiler technician. I hope to get my MBA somewhere down the road, but at this stage in my life, that's just not exactly where I want to go. I really am looking forward to getting that hands-on aspect, working with animals to help my career down the road as well. As far as internships, experiences, interviews, a very unique opportunity that I've been able to have while here at Purdue. I've been able to serve as a teaching assistant for a careers interviewing networking resume class. I took it as a freshman and have been a teaching assistant and the head teaching assistant for the last 3 years. So interviews are what I do every single day. I interview students here at Purdue to help them with that interview process that a lot of time is super intimidating for us as students. So I'm super excited to speak here today. The big takeaways, a lot of great takeaways so far that I've heard. I think two that I might throw in here are some good advice, I guess. Going into an interview, make sure you remain confident. Obviously don't try to appear like you know everything, but believe in yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've tried to help a lot of undergraduate students when we talk and when we interview and kind of practice that vet school interview, grad school interview, industry interview, whatever that looks like. Be confident in yourself, and every single experience that you've had so far, whether that's in your undergraduate degree, is totally valid. Show that off. Even if you were a server or waitress at some point, service industry is something that requires a lot of patience and a lot of skill and attention to detail. So do not ever look down on your own experiences. Share those. Be confident in those. And then another takeaway, I guess, is just building your network. I mean, I'm sure a lot of students have heard this, and a lot of advisors have preached this. But every single one of my interviews and internships that I've had so far has all come from knowing somebody that knows somebody. My first internship out of my freshman year, I worked for a wire and cable manufacturing company, nothing to do with animal sciences, but I knew somebody from 4-H who was an advisor, and they had a job, and just being willing to get in your foot in the door and do anything, work anything to build that network has really led me to where I am today. So I guess those are my big takeaways, and I'm super excited to help answer questions that come along. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon, for sharing. Appreciate you being here. And our final panelist is coming to us from Texas Tech University. We have Denise Guevara Ruiz, and she is, I believe, a senior from Texas Tech. So I'll let you take it away, Denise.
Thank you, Emily. My name is Denise Guevara, and I actually graduated in December of last year. Like mentioned before by somebody else, I was a 5th-year senior. I was not sure what I wanted to do with my career choice. I wanted to be a veterinarian for as long as I could remember, but it really hits home when you walk into that first, what class was it? I think it was bio or microbiology, where it was super in depth. It was an honors class and I was not prepared for it. So it really humbleized me. And I came to the decision that vet school is probably not not the right career choice for me. So I actually graduated with a double major in animal science with both concentrations in animal science, business, as well as meat science. And I currently work, I have a full-time position with Cargill Protein here in Friona, Texas. So right now I am a FSQR associate, which is kind of similar to a supervisor trainee. And I would be in charge of all the quality assurance technicians here in the facility. And all these points that have been mentioned before, they've all been very, very applicable to my own interviewing experience. My interview happened to be virtual because it was during last summer where the pandemic was at its peak, where no one could, essentially we were all shut down in Kansas. So I did my internship through a computer, and it was something that I wasn't prepared for. Interviewing was super hard because I didn't know what to do with my hands. I didn't know if I was fidgeting on camera or if I was on mute. And it was all these technical issues, whether it be from my end or the interviewer's end. And it was just trying to get over those technical difficulties where you kind of, in a sense, bonded with your interviewer. And it was really neat to see that it wasn't just me, it was people who've been in the field that are also experiencing all these difficulties during this time. So my interview for my internship was virtual, and for my position right now, it was virtual. So I essentially met my boss through a screen, and I had no idea what to ask her, no idea what to even say, or questions post interview. That was my biggest issue. I could never figure out exactly what I wanted to ask. So my biggest piece of advice for anybody doing a virtual internship or doing a virtual interview is to kind of research that company that you want to work for. You want to be prepared in order to sound confident. You don't want to oversell yourself, but you don't want to sell yourself short. So it's super, super important to know who you want to work for. And Cargill, for example, I knew that they valued safety in a way that was super important to me, not only for their products, but for their people. So that's something that I wanted to mention to my interviewer was what are different ways that you promote safety within the facility or things of that nature. And another piece, kind of like what Brandon said, was network as much as you can. All my opportunities that I was able to do in college or outside of college, it was all because I knew somebody who knew somebody. So it's super important, whether it's completely out of your comfort zone, go ahead and ask for that contact information, ask for a business card, because you can never know down the road, whether it be for you, whether it be for a coworker or a colleague, it might be that connection that you needed, and it gets your foot in that door for anything that you need. So super, super important to network as much as you can.
Alrighty, and I think that concludes our introductions. So one more time, I just want to thank all of our panelists for dedicating their time when we know it's all a busy season for everyone. And we want to thank all of our attendees. It looks like we have a wonderful turnout today. So we'll go ahead and get started with the Q&A portion of the webinar. I just want to remind everyone, please submit your questions through the question and answer box down there in the center of your screen. So the first question we have, if we want to go ahead and get maybe 1 to 2 perspectives per question, but if you have something to add, always feel free to jump in for all of our panelists. If you have an interview, what types of questions would you consider asking to your interviewer? If you guys want to give an example of maybe some common questions that you asked during your interview process, I think that would be helpful.
I can start. A common question that I ask my interviewers is, what is the climate of the maybe the internship or the job or whatever space that you're looking to go into? So what's the environment? How is the workers' pace? How do they interact with each other? Because that'll let you know exactly if that's the type of space that you're comfortable with being in, and if that's the type of support that you're looking to get from that job or that interview.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I usually try to go in with a couple kind of like pre-thought out questions that sort of have to do with their company culture. And so I'll ask them, for example, like how do you see your company's values playing out throughout the day? How do employees interact with each other? And really like try to have a couple pre-planned out questions with that sort of subject in mind going into it. And then throughout the interview, I also try and write down on a piece of paper a couple specific questions that I have about the position that I'm applying for. And that way I can ask that later on and kind of work that into those company culture questions.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So our next question is for those applying or heading into vet school. What was the hardest thing to do or, skill or, challenge you had to pass in order to achieve that goal of attending veterinary school or even making it to the interview process?
I think I'll chime in on this one a little bit. I think one of the biggest things that I struggled with that a lot of people don't really think about when they think about applying. Everybody thinks about like, yeah, I've got to get good grades and everything like that. And of course, that's really difficult through your undergrad degree. But one of the hardest things for me was getting my recommendations. So I kind of wanted a variety, right? You don't want them all to be veterinarians when you're applying to vet school, but you don't want them all to be like professor based. So I kind of had to really think about who I wanted to ask for these recommendations and really think about how they would represent me as a person, and how well do they really know me, and are they going to give me like a really good word that really represents myself as a person, as an animal scientist. And the funny thing is, once you really get these recommendations and people agree, sometimes they're super busy through the year, right? Sometimes they're like, yeah, sure, I'll write it for you, but 3 months later, they haven't really kind of followed up with you. So you kind of have to be like very diligent in asking and continuing to pursue these recommendations and making sure that they get in on time and that you have a good variety and that you're just very well represented through your interview process. So that was one of the biggest struggles for me, but yeah.
Awesome. Our next question is if any of you panelists have had to create a PowerPoint presentation and deliver it virtually, could any of you discuss any problems you may have had with that process or any tips and advice for presenting a PowerPoint virtually?
I can actually chime into this one. My internship for cargo was virtual, so we had plenty of presentations that we had to do virtually. And my biggest piece of advice is whether you be doing this presentation by yourself or whether you have a team of people that are doing one presentation as a whole, make sure you go through your presentation, make sure that you do like a practice round to go over any slides, or if you have a link where it has to go onto the internet or a link to sound or anything, make sure that all those are functioning properly, or even send it to a different email, whether it be a friend's or another personal email of yours. Go ahead and make sure that that presentation is running smoothly, that there's no glitching on your end. And another thing is just make sure that before you start your presentation, if anyone has a technical issue, to go ahead and resolve those prior to your presentation. That way, if there's a time limit, you can get over that little bump in the road that a lot of us face, especially in the virtual world. So go ahead and just make sure your presentation is very run smoothly, all your links are good, and you should be good to go.
I can kind of piggyback off of what Denise had to share there. And this past summer, I had an internship with Elanco Animal Health on their global marketing team. My whole internship was entirely virtual. So I sat here in my bedroom every single day at this desk, giving PowerPoint presentations to people all over the world, different time zones. The biggest issue that I think I can add on, other than maybe technical issues that Denise did a great job at kind of talking about how to work out, I thrive off of body language. My background is a horse trainer. My dad and I operate a horse training business out of Northern Indiana. Body language is everything to me. So having an audience in front of me is what I thrive off of in a presentation. So giving a presentation virtually was something that was very difficult for me to get used to. I enjoy cracking jokes. I enjoy feeling out my audience, and that's something that's honestly very difficult to do via Zoom and also a PowerPoint presentation as you're running through it. So some things that I really tried to work on before that final presentation to wrap up my whole summer in a short 30-minute PowerPoint. I practiced it with other interns that were on the marketing team with me. I sent the link to my advisor for the summer and made sure that a lot of those technical difficulties were ironed out, as well as I was comfortable with the pace that my PowerPoint was going, and not being able to rely on every single person having their camera on and rely on that. So just making sure that I got that PowerPoint presentation in front of a lot of different eyes and received feedback, just so that I would know how it is perceived by an audience going into that. So whether that's friends, if you're working on confidential information, maybe that's a little harder to show to your friends or peers. So maybe asking other people in the company, organization, whatever you're working on for some help and just general feedback, I think was something that helped me the most.
Thank you, guys. I think everyone, if you've been in a Zoom class or a lecture that was live and then had to be transitioned to Zoom, we all have a greater appreciation for those who excel at the online format. It's an underappreciated skill that hopefully more of us have mastered in the meantime. Our next question, so what are some internships that some of you may have had previously that have helped you boost your networking and hopefully land a job in the future? And that, that can be internships like from, the last few years of college or anything you've had prior to that.
So I can answer this question. Last summer, I had an internship with Transova Genetics out in Sioux Center, Iowa, and it didn't necessarily lead me to landing a job because I'm not going into like that sort of area yet. I'm going to get my master's, but it did really help me kind of narrow down what I wanted to do and what I wanted to focus on as I continue to pursue an education. So being out there and really learning about all of the reproductive technologies that they are using to really advance cattle genetics really got me excited for the next step and kind of helped me direct the direction that I wanted to go in. I said earlier that I really had no idea throughout much of my undergrad career where I was headed, and that I would say is the one internship that really helped me kind of pick that direction.
If there aren't any other panelists, I can never avoid awkward silence. I always try to speak up in some sort of way. And if there are any other panelists that would like to answer this, feel free to interrupt. But I think some of the biggest points of an internship, and especially it being online, networking is even harder because you're not passing them in the hallway to go get a cup of coffee. You're not able to be in person right next to them. You can't stop and talk and say, hey, how is your dog doing? How is whatever this that you might have talked about already? So being diligent, meeting people, setting up meetings, something that I took advantage of over my summer internship. Each week, I set up a meeting with all of the interns on my marketing team. So I took the initiative to set up individual one-on-one meetings. I was the only undergraduate student on the marketing team. Every other student was a master's or an MBA student. And that's something that I'd like to do someday. So being diligent about creating those meetings, setting those up and following up and just asking for advice. Listening, I think, is one of the biggest things that can be helpful in that instance to network. And apart from internships, career fairs. I know Purdue does a great job at offering career fairs for students. They always brag that it's one of the largest career fairs. I don't know what the exact number is, but not being afraid to go up and meet somebody, get a business card, establish that connection, because chances are they will remember you if you make that genuine connection and try. And maybe that's LinkedIn too, a large platform that I've kind of learned to utilize here at Purdue is LinkedIn, and the power of knowing somebody that knows somebody. Feel free to connect with them. It sometimes seems scary as an undergraduate student that people out in the industry are super scary, or veterinarians now it's intimidating to get in contact with them, but they have all been in our shoes. They all totally understand what it's like to be a senior student getting ready to graduate, go out in the world and have no idea what they want to do. So just knowing that they're humans too, and just understanding that to build that network sometimes might take a little bit more effort on your part to make those connections and establish those.
Thank you, Kirsten and Brandon, for those feedback on both traditional and maybe non-traditional ways to network in the current state that we're in more of a virtual format. Our next question is, for those of you that chose to go to vet school, what was the reason that really led you to pursuing vet school?
I guess I can kind of answer this one. That's kind of a difficult question. It's one of the questions that you really have to think about. There's obviously a ton of things that made me want to go to vet school, but I think some of the biggest things were I've always had a passion and a love for animals, right? And I've always wanted to put that forth through society. And I knew that through doing internships over the summer and through working at a vet clinic, I knew that this was something that my career would give me something new every day, and every day would be a mystery, and every day would be like a puzzle to solve, and every day would be something involved with medicine, something involved with chemistry, something involved with science, and a way for me to serve my community also through just my love for all these sciences. And I think another thing that a lot of people think about when they want to go to vet school, they say, well, it's because I want to work with animals, right? That's what my goal has been for my whole life. But being a veterinarian is working with humans like 90% of the time and working with animals like 10% of the time. So I really do have a passion with working through the producer side of things and through the owner and pet side of things, and just seeing how the vets that I've had as mentors really truly contribute to their community and to their loved ones and their friends and their families through these services through the animals. And I have just really loved seeing that throughout the past years, and that has totally convinced me and made me determined to go to vet school. So that's definitely a good interview question to study, as they will probably ask you that.
Great, thank you, Sienna. Another question we have is, what is the most important thing to research about a company or an operation before going to an interview? Not just the mission statement or the history, perhaps something that's a little bit more specific or detailed about whatever sector you're about to interview for.
So I did do this for my full-time position. So one thing that I did look for within my company that I work for was any innovations that they've done in the past couple of years. So during my researching process, I came through an article where Cargo had created a brand new, so I work in a beef packing plant. So beef has a very special place in my heart, and it was something that I've always wanted to do. And it's, in a sense, I feel that I'm a small contribution to feeding the world, essentially, since we have customers all over the world and facilities all over the world. And I came to notice that we had essentially they broke ground on a beef packing plant in Monterrey, Mexico, where my family is from. And I thought that was something very unique and very close to home for me. So that was something that I went ahead and brought up during our interview was, how quickly do you see this facility reaching the same numbers that American facilities are reaching, or how many, essentially how many people are we hiring, or how big is this facility, or how fast are we wanting to get this business up and running, or little things like that, or what are the job opportunities that would be available in this facility. So new innovations that that company or that facility is having, or any new sorts of technologies in your work area would be good questions to, or good things to look at when researching a company. Okay, answering this pertaining to graduate school, I think it's really important that you research the research that the professor that you're interested in is doing. So just taking the time and reading some of their recently published journal articles will really help you when you're in your interview, because they want to know why you're interested. And if you don't really know what the research is about, I think that's a really big part. So just taking the time to read some of their published articles, or taking the time to read, they have some bios on their websites as well that kind of explain the research that they're doing. So I think that's important to do pertaining to graduate school.
Thank you, Denise and Sarah. Our next question is, looking back over your college career with the courses and various resources you've had available, can you highlight 2 to 3 specific courses, activities, or resources that have been available to you that you feel like have been pivotal to your development? Or conversely, maybe something that you wish you had as a resource to prepare you?
This question kind of jumped out at me because as a freshman, I feel like for you guys, I'm not a senior yet, but as a freshman, I feel like I kind of wish someone would told me to be hands-on immediately. I wish someone told me to get out there and just do. And I say that because our university farm has been the biggest help. And I say that because I get all the hands-on experience that I can then apply to my in-class or my lectures or whatever. But getting that hands-on experience, you could never trade that for anything. It really is helpful, and you learn things in different ways, and you're able to apply those to really everything you do. So I used to say, get that hands-on experience as soon as you can, because it really does go a long way.
Just to kind of add to that, so if you have any inkling of what you might be interested in a career, to me, what has helped me a lot is to go to HR specialists or my professors that are in the same field as I am, and to ask them, hey, what are some little things that would make me more competitive? Like, take for instance, I'm in range management, and typically you think about, okay, I need to learn livestock management, range management. I need a little bit about soils, climate, etc. But what I didn't know is that things like GIS, a little bit more on like the livestock production that you wouldn't necessarily get in a range management class, or learning about watershed management or anything like that. That is things that will help you just kind of put you over the edge when you're applying for jobs, or that way you don't have such a big learning curve when you get to your career position, because then you've already at least heard about it and you can have some input. But definitely reach out to anybody who might be in your field and just say, hey, I'm looking for the little things that maybe what would you have taken, that would have helped you in your career, kind of fast track you. So anyway.
So to add on to what they've said, this is something that's a little bit different, and it's been very, very big for me in my career, is do extracurriculars that have something to do with what you want to do with your career. So for me, I knew I wanted to be in the animal science industry. I just never knew where or what I wanted to do. And when I first got to Texas Tech, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew that it was a very, very, it had a very prestigious meat science department. So I joined the meats judging team, and it was completely out of my comfort zone, something that I never even heard of. But if I can honestly say with 100% certainty, if it wasn't for meat judging, I would not be in the position that I am now, because of this team and because of all the networking that we did and all the different facilities that we got to learn about and visit and tour. I essentially started learning about different companies that I wanted to work for, or companies that I didn't see myself in. And I met people, I met my boss through meat judging, my advisors, they've all had a pivotal in a sense, they were very, very important to me, and do the little things. So I joined the livestock team, which made me learn that I could not do live animals. It was something that was completely over my head. I didn't understand it, but with meat judging, it really made me see like, oh, okay, this is how we produce product for customers. This is how essentially we feed the world, and how we export things or how we import things. So do things that, or join, whether it be teams, judging teams, or block and bridle, or different little things. Do more within your career choice, and that'll honestly get you in a sense a broader understanding of where you want to go or where do you want to see yourself.
And I know I'm the fourth person to raise my hand for this question, and I feel so bad, but I just want to offer another perspective as we look at, I'm someone who's going directly into industry, not going grad school or vet school in that sense. But one of the biggest classes here at Purdue that helped me was a sales class. I don't know if every institution offers that, but something that has really helped me, my freshman year, I came in here, I was probably one of the shyest people you'd ever meet. I get nervous giving giving speeches. I'd be shaking nervous walking up to somebody at a career fair to introduce myself. And one of the biggest, other than those hands-on experiences, like we've already mentioned in co-curricular activities, would be that sales class that I had the opportunity to take. And so maybe that's a different perspective. If any undergraduate students are listening to this right now and maybe have that opportunity, I think that's something that has benefited me greatly now, and something that I'll take with me the rest of my life.
Okay, I'm going to add on a little bit more to this question. I just think it's a very loaded question, and there are a lot of different perspectives to this. So I just want to add that taking advantage of, or using your professors and the graduate students in your department can really help you. I think that was something really important to me. Some undergraduates, I don't know if they're like kind of scared of the graduate students, but they're there to help you as well. I have been doing undergraduate research since my freshman year, so I've become really close to the graduate students in our department, but I feel like they have really helped me in like my path to graduate school. So they've been through this, so they know exactly what to expect and how to help you. So I feel like the graduate students and the professors, if you have any questions, they're always happy to answer any questions that you may have. So I just think that both the graduate students and the animal science professors are people that you don't think of, but they've been where you are right now. So they're really beneficial to you, especially for graduate school, if that's what you're thinking about.
Thank you guys so much. These are awesome answers. I'm so thankful you guys are all here to share your perspective. So our next question, I recently changed my major to animal science this semester, and I feel like an outsider. How would you suggest I start networking to pursue, either industry or another type of animal science career?
So going through the questions, I really was looking forward to answering this one. Like Sarah said before, she started her undergraduate research in freshman year. I also started my undergraduate research my freshman year just by talking to a speaker that came to my class. So being engaged in different speakers, different vet schools that come and they speak to your classes, different industry leaders that come and speak just to maybe your pre-vet club, going up and introducing yourself, letting them know what you want to do in life and how you want to go about it, asking them questions about what they're doing, just getting to introduce yourself to some speakers that come and speak to any events that you have is a great way to put your foot in the door, especially in animal science world. It might be scary to change your major and not really know not only the students, but the professors, but getting engaged in like co-curricular activities like a pre-vet club or an animal industry club, anything can actually help boost you and get you interested, not only interested, but included in different opportunities that they're offering.
she kind of stole the words out of my mouth. I was going to just kind of elaborate more on the club side of things. It sounds kind of cheesy, but joining a club in your undergraduate degree is like a huge form of networking. And I know when you sometimes it's a little bit scary, right, to talk to your professors, or like Sarah was saying, sometimes the graduate students, but just being around other students who are your age, who may be a little bit more experienced in the animal side of things, you know, that know a few other people that are in the industry at the time is really good, I think, and it's very beneficial for you as a student to just have like that group of friends and those group of people around you who know other people and can network for you. And yeah, just kind of having a group of friends that allow you to find resources in animal science.
I feel bad again jumping in here, but with classes online, it's so hard to make those connections in person. A lot of clubs, you'd be able to go up and you'd all meet together. I don't know how every educational institution is doing it around the US. Purdue has taken COVID very seriously, limiting class sizes, club meetings, on-campus gatherings. So to a student that may have freshly transferred into animal sciences, I came here to Purdue. I didn't know anybody in my major. I had the advantage of being a freshman, and they helped a lot with orientation. But now in this climate, changing to a new major can be very intimidating. Something I'd suggest is following up with your professors in classes, trying to find ways to get plugged in. As Sarah said earlier, graduate students are something that I wish I would have taken advantage of. They're students who have been in our shoes and are studying things that we might be interested in. And so getting involved in those and maybe finding clubs, like Sade said, of trying to find little areas to get plugged in. But maybe that looks like emailing your professor or getting an email of somebody who's presenting to your class over Zoom and following up with them. It's definitely hard in this atmosphere, but trying to make those connections might really help kind of establish yourself in a new department.
Yeah, and I just have a little bit to add to that. This isn't really advice, but you should be really proud of yourself for making that transition during a pandemic and with everything that's going on. Here at Purdue, I'm an animal science peer advisor. So every week I hold office hours for younger students, a lot of freshmen and sophomore students. And I've had multiple students just pop onto my office hours and say, I really don't like any of the classes that I'm taking. What do I do? And so I sometimes have to walk through all the steps with them to like, well, do you want to change your major? What are you interested in? Do you like any of these other classes? Do you like these clubs? You know, just really help them figure out what they like. And I wish I would have had someone to do that with me when I was younger, but we all eventually get it figured out. So I just want to say, like, you should be really proud of yourself for trying to take that initiative, change your major, and then like coming to stuff like this and just getting advice and really like trying to network with people and figure out where you want to be.
Thank you so much, guys, and don't apologize for jumping in on all of these answers, because I think we're getting such a diverse group of answers and experiences that this is incredibly valuable. I'm learning a ton, I know, so very appreciative of all the answers you guys are giving. So our next question is, how valuable do you think a degree beyond a bachelor's is in the animal science industry or field?
This question actually really stood out to me. I was that kid that I did not know if I wanted to do a master's because it was something that was very intimidating, being a first generation student, being actually the very first and only person in my entire family to go to college. It was very, very intimidating and a very difficult decision to make. But my biggest piece of advice for anyone that's for this question is ask, whether it be a person in your field, a professional in your field, or even an advisor, lean on them to give you advice. So for me, my advisor was essentially holding my hand. And when I was making this decision, I said, do I need a master's for this career? And he said, personally, from what I've seen, he's been 20 years or 20 plus years in the industry. He said, I don't feel you do, but if you want to, go ahead and do it. And having that person tell me, hey, you can, but you don't have to, really, really meant the world to me, because it was a major decision for me. It was another 2 years of school, or however many more years it would be. And asking that question and finding those people that are willing to be honest with you is very, very important. So go ahead and just ask, hey, do you see this degree worthwhile, or what is your advice? Do you feel I should do this? I also worked in undergrad research. So a lot of people told me, hey, if you don't want to go into research, you can, but you don't really need it. So I said, hey, that's important to me, for me to know. And it led me to not get a master's and get a full-time position. And looking back on it, yeah, maybe I could have gotten a master's, but that school will always be there in my eyes. So just ask away and be sure to find that person that is willing to be honest with you and not sugarcoat things. So go ahead and just ask, like, is it worth it? And I felt that was just something that I truly, truly needed. So it was really important for me.
I think this is a great question, and I saw this one coming up, and I feel like is super applicable to my situation that I'm in right now. So graduating here in a couple weeks, choosing to go directly into industry versus sticking on for a master's or a PhD program. That's something that I always thought that maybe that's what I wanted to do. But in all honesty, when I lay my head down on my pillow at night, am I comfortable and am I proud in that situation? If a higher degree is what you would like and what you aspire to be and to go on and get that degree, then absolutely go for it. If that's your passion, if your passion's in research and there's a topic and a researcher that you want to study that with, absolutely go for it. I've talked to a lot of professionals that are in this field now and that have a bachelor's, have a master's, have a PhD. And in the career and area that I want to go right now, in the broiler technician position, a higher degree right now is not necessarily what I need for that position. If you are looking at a different position that maybe that's where that degree is applicable, then absolutely go for it. One of the big interview questions that I asked when I was in my interview for this position now that I'll take upon graduation is, are advanced degrees required to move up in this position? What does a company makeup look like of PhDs, masters, MBAs? What does that look like? And for my career in my field, in the areas that I want to go, that's not necessarily required at this point. Maybe later on, an MBA program might be what I would like to do. But I think honestly, just weighing your options on your own is, and as Denise said, meet with advisors, meet with people that you admire in this field, and get multiple perspectives. Don't just get one perspective from somebody with their PhD and say, well, do you think it's worth it? Ask a master's, ask somebody with their bachelor's. And ultimately at the end of the day, when you go to sleep, are you happy? And is this something that you would like to do to further your education or your career? So I think that's my advice as somebody not currently seeking that, but it's all up to you, and definitely rely on people you look up to, advisors and mentors in your field.
Yeah, so I would just reiterate, do your research on what you really want to do and what degrees are specifically needed for that area, and network. But I also want to say, don't sell yourself short. Like if you think that there is a degree that you want to pursue and maybe you don't have the best GPA, or maybe you don't have all the experience that you think you need right now, keep working there. I said that I went back and forth between vet school and grad school, and truthfully, I don't have the best GPA. I don't have anywhere close to a 4.0, but I thought that maybe vet school was something that would help me in my future career. So I just continued to pursue it, and also made sure that I had all of the hands-on animal experience that I thought I might need, had the research experience that I thought I might need for a graduate position, and just kept working towards both and made sure that I had a really great backup plan. So just because maybe school isn't your thing, you can't trade actual hands-on experience for just about anything else. Like that is knowledge that you have and that you can apply in real time. And, you know, just make sure that you, like, whatever you decide that you want to do, work for it, even if you understand that, you know, maybe you have weaknesses. You can always be strong in other areas.
Well, these are both really, really great answers. And I think honestly, you're getting a bachelor's degree. That's a big deal in itself. You are not quitting. You are going through and you're continuing. And that alone is an accomplishment, regardless of any further education you might pursue. Getting that bachelor's degree, that's still a big deal. Like 6% of the world only has a bachelor's degree, and you're going to be part of that 6%. That's awesome. That's wonderful. So thank you guys for that perspective. I think it's really important to shed light on some of that, some of those questions. So for students who are completely online next semester, no in-person classes that they are aware of at this time, how do you suggest they get involved with their school to stand out to professors or industry workers or even the graduate students?
I think I can answer this question because I'm currently in that position. I took the decision to take my first semester as a senior my pre-vet club's e-board, and I made sure that I kept in connection with them while I was doing whatever else I was doing, classes, whether that be classes or the shadowing. So even if the e-board isn't for you, for whatever club that you are looking to join, you should also want to be a good member. So making sure that you're attending the meetings, having conversations with the e-board, discussing whatever those topics are or getting to know them better. And also just making sure that they're getting to know you as well. So if they have an opportunity that they know about, they can reach out to you and let you know about it and get you included in that opportunity. And also, if you are doing your semester all online and you choose to do something like I'm doing, like shadowing, make sure that you do set a good impression for yourself because you never know who people know. So once I started doing my work with Tuskegee, I was reached out from my dean of my animal science department, letting me know, hey, I know which doctors you're working with, and it's really awesome that you're out and you're doing that. So making sure that with everything that you do, you're putting your best foot forward because you never know who that will get back to.
I actually decided the semester before this one to also take an online semester. And I was actually so nervous about it because I was like, wait, I was just in class. Now you're telling me I have to do all this over a computer. And I just think, I don't want to sound like cliche or anything, but social media honestly did a lot as far as following your school's school pages, down to like dining hall pages, to pre-vet club pages, farming pages, anything like that. If you have a question, a direct message really doesn't hurt to send them. Even if they don't get back to you, that's still a way. I also never lost contact with my advisor through email. Even people just said, hey, checking in on you, how you doing? He will respond with, hey, I'm doing fine, and then send me a bunch of scholarships, opportunities, just keeping those, never losing the determination, I guess, if you are taking an online semester. It is hard, but don't lose the drive or passion, because the fact that you keep the drive and passion really takes you a long way.
I think a lot of those experiences and ways to get plugged in are great. And ones that I found myself taking advantage of as a senior now, taking our classes are kind of in this hybrid schedule. A lot of animal sciences classes. I had a beef evaluation class in a beef management where it's kind of hard to do all of that online. So we still had to go out to the farms, but I'm currently in an animal breeding class this semester that's fully online. So definitely not being around other people is something that's super hard for me. Like I had mentioned before, I feed a lot off of other people's energy and communicating with them. Some ways that I found to still stay in contact other than the social media, that was a great a way to still stay connected. And like you said, I like the point, even following like dining hall pages, just things to find whether there are campus events going on, to still get plugged in. I know Purdue has really tried hard to make sure that students still feel involved. So getting out, we had movies on our football stadium field where you could social distance and go, but also pay attention to emails too. A lot of times I look up at my computer here and I probably have 1,000 or so unread emails. It gives me a lot of anxiety, but I know I'll get through them one email at a time. But a lot of those are your professors, your department trying to reach out to engage you in some way. And if that's not the case, maybe find clubs and organizations to try to get plugged into. A lot of clubs are doing the online format this semester, especially here at Purdue. But maybe trying to follow up, whether that's a club president asking ways to get involved. I feel like I'm a broken record, but I truly believe making those connections and reaching out can really help get you a long way into getting plugged into an organization, a club, and then really standing out later on to industry members, showing that you took this much initiative in a pandemic to help further your education and co-curricular activities.
Thank you. I think those were some really good perspectives. So the next question we have is, if you had the opportunity to go back and retake classes in college, or maybe add some classes, what are some outside of your major that you would consider to be beneficial moving into your future career?
I think I have two classes that I can think of right now that I think would be beneficial for anybody really going into any career, whether you're going into a career after your bachelor's or vet school or grad school or anything. The first one that comes to mind whenever I think of this question is like a business finance class. I know it's probably not something you really love as a science student, or it may not be a super exciting class, right? But it's learning how to deal with credit, learning how to deal with taxes, learning how to deal with insurance, and starting to build up your retirement when you're 25 and not when you're 35, or just kind of giving you a good feasible background in your finances, which I know for me, I'm going into vet school and I'm probably going to have to take out some student loans. So I really need a good background of how I'm going to work with my money and everything. And the second one that I kind of think of, I'm actually taking this class right now, is a human relations class, or a class that kind of allows you to learn to communicate well with your coworkers, learn to hold your relationships well with those that are around you, and communicating and being able to express yourself in ways that are efficient and ways that are allowing your workspace to work well with one another. So yeah, those are the two that I kind of think of that are outside of animal science.
I can kind of speak to one very kind of self-explanatory, and I'm not sure why I didn't take this class. Maybe a lot of other animal sciences departments require this, but like a legume, crop, forages, soil class. I, as an animal sciences student here at Purdue, I don't know if you heard when Kirsten and I introduced ourselves, we kind of set a concentration. Hers is biosciences, mine is agribusiness. I focused heavily on the business side. I got a background in all the different animal species, nutrition, management, all of those, reproductive management, but I didn't ever take advantage of crops and soils. What our animals eat. And that's one big thing, is if I didn't have 2 more weeks as a Purdue University student, that I really wish I would have gone back and had some sort of a background in. I think it's super helpful. And like I said, going into this, it's something that's probably super self-explanatory, but I don't know why I never took advantage of that opportunity.
Brandon, I have to laugh because I had almost the exact same experience after I graduated from undergrad. And I had an internship with the Cooperative Extension Service, and I learned immeasurably more than I ever could have desired to know about forages in a 8-week period that I really wish I had had the opportunity to take as an undergraduate, because animals eat plants and that's how they produce, consumable products for us. So I completely understand where you're coming from. So Dr. Casey put in the chat that we like the idea of students being confident in yourself. What sort of skills do undergraduate students typically have to offer to a potential employer? It can be really, really intimidating to speak with these folks who are so much more experienced than you. They're older, they have a capacity for learning that you haven't quite understood yet. So what do you feel as undergraduate students that you can offer to these potential employers?
I can speak up to this because I know I was the one who mentioned be confident in your interviewing. As a teaching assistant for the career and networking class and resume class that I talked about over the past 3 years, students have come in and been like, well, I don't really have a lot of animal sciences experience. I'm still trying to get that. I don't come from a farming background, but this is my passion. What I say to that is you are at your current institution because you've earned your way to get there. You have shown that you have what it takes to be in that current position. You've shown that if you're in an animal sciences course, you've shown that you can complete those science type classes, whether that's microbiology, which is a big hang up here at Purdue, and a lot of students, a lot of my friends are currently taking that. But you have shown that you have what it takes. You have that analytical brain, maybe. You have the way, you know how to think critically. And I think, obviously, I'm not an HR professional. I'm not out in the industry, but speaking from an undergraduate perspective and somebody that has worked a lot with my peers who don't think that their experiences can relate in any way, they can. Whether it's, like I said before, in a restaurant or service industry, you're calling on people, you're calling on customers, which are the people at your table if you're waiting on a table. In your courses, you're managing your time every night by making sure all your homework assignments are done on time. You're learning, you're taking the initiative to go out and meet people. So just understanding that those are totally valuable experiences, and those are directly applicable into the job career realm, whether that's graduate school, vet school, whatever that is. You have shown already that you have those skills, but just make sure that you're able to communicate those skills properly. Obviously, don't go into that situation and believe, well, they know I'm here, they already know what I have. Make sure that you can articulate yourself and kind of show those experiences. I think that would be my best advice on how to remain confident going into a situation where you're talking with somebody that has such a higher level of degree or has been in that position for 20, 30 years.
I think kind of going off of what Brandon's talking about with confidence and everything, one of the biggest ways that I, as an undergraduate student, was able to build up my confidence was just kind of finding leadership opportunities. And I know, I'm sure a lot of us have been officers in clubs or done sort of different things in our department that's allowed us to be a little bit of a leader. And I know I've heard Kirsten say that she was an advisor to younger students, and I myself went through a program where I was a mentor for incoming freshmen, where I could just kind of give them an idea of the area, give them an idea of the curriculum, and guide them on their path. And I think when we put ourselves out there and we really learn to be better public speakers or learn to lead a group and to work well with others, it gives us that bit of confidence that we need when we're going into our interviews. I know there was quite a few questions that I went through in my interviews that were scenario type questions of, if you were in a group and this happened, how would you lead this situation, or how would you respond to this situation? And just being able to be somebody that people want to listen to and people want to be inspired from, I think gives you a very big jump in your confidence and will allow you to express yourself better through your interviews.
Yeah, I think both of those were really good answers. This isn't necessarily a specific skill, but one time during an interview, I was straight up asked if I had this one specific background, and the straight answer to that was no. And I told them, no, I don't, but that is why I'm here, and that is why I'm talking to you. I told them that, you know, even though I don't have this background, like, I am here and I want to learn from you. I want to learn everything that I possibly can from you and your company. And I want to gain those skills and that background that you're asking me about. So I think, you know, tagging off the confidence thing, having that confidence and just being honest that, I'm, as an undergrad, you're really not an expert in anything yet, and you're talking to experts, and just showing your absolute excitement and enthusiasm for learning more about this industry and whatever you're applying for really goes a long way.
Another question that we had pop up was, for those of you that had to do a fully virtual interview, be it for vet school or your upcoming job, were you able to receive virtual tours of your facilities? And if you were, did you find them beneficial? If you weren't, did you find that rather problematic and making you uncertain moving into your next step?
Yes, so for my vet school interview, I kind of explained it before, but they had pre-recorded videos of the vets asking us a question. And before presenting each one of those videos, they showed us a short sort of tour video of different sections of the vet school before asking the question, and then giving me 2 minutes of recorded time to answer the question. The true answer is that I really didn't find it beneficial, and there were only 5 questions in this interview. I'm thankful that I go to Purdue and have been involved in the vet school, and so I knew a lot of the vets, and I knew kind of the layout of the vet school and what I was actually interviewing for. But I would encourage you, if you're ever in a position like that, reach out to those people. You're going to have emails for someone somewhere. And if you are truly interested in that position, reach out to them, ask more questions, get more information, and really kind of build your network in that area. So that way you're truly prepared if you are offered that position.
I actually did do a virtual tour of the facility after a few of my interviews, and I think personally for me, it was more beneficial because of going through this interview process, like right in the midst of 2020. And I had this fear of, what if I don't like it there? What if I don't really love the environment? And me not being able to go tour these facilities live was very scary. It was very intimidating for me. So I think when they kind of ended the interview process with a virtual tour, I was able to see, like, this is how much hands-on facilities they have. This is their veterinary teaching hospital. And honestly, for Washington State, once they showed me their veterinary teaching hospital, I was like, I'm sold. So, I mean, it kind of was a really big factor for me to see the facility and the campus through their eyes before I was able to actually go there in person. So.
Kind of to add on to what they were saying. So I'm kind of in the middle of this for this question. So I actually have been in the Friona bee packing facility prior to working here, whether it be for research or for meat judging. I was very well aware of the facility that I was going to be working in. But when I was first offered the FSQR associate role, I was told, hey, we have either the Fresno, California option or Wyalusing, Pennsylvania. And being from the Midwest, they were both very, very intimidating locations, not just because they were facilities that I had no idea what they looked like, what area of the town they were even in, but it was because it was, to me, it was on the other side of the country, and it was a big, big decision. And they both offered me virtual tours, but for some odd reason, a virtual tour was just not enough to get me to jump the gun and say, hey, yeah, I'll move to the other side of the US for so amount of time. And I asked, and I said, hey, is there any chance I can stay in Texas, or you can send me back to Kansas where I'm originally from, but I'd much rather stay here. But go ahead and ask, hey, I'm willing to relocate, but if that's my only option, is there any other places where I could go or be in? They said, hey, well, we do have a position in Friona. And since I knew the facility and I was really comfortable here, I said, yeah, I'll go ahead and take it. But I'm just not a very big risk taker, and a virtual tour just was not enough for me to say, hey, yeah, no, this is for sure it. But if you're that kind of person that like mentioned before, that tour of Washington State, it led her to go there, and it's a very big, important role and a big decision. But just know, if you want to make that change, and if that's something that you want to pursue, go ahead and do it. And if it's not, then like me, I'd rather stay in my little comfort zone, and I'd rather be familiar and see that facility in person, see if that's an option that is offered to y'all.
Great, thank you guys. For those of you who may be concerned about like what to do next, or if you're not 100% sure what the next step is, or even if you are 100% sure, were there any alumni or anyone in particular that you had a really close mentorship with that helped you make some of those decisions? And how would you recommend really getting to know professors on a level where you can trust them in that regard?
So I'll speak on this because my supervisor, Dr. Worku, in the animal science department, I work with her in undergraduate research. She's really helped me. She's a doctor. She didn't go to veterinary school, but master's and PhD level. It really helped me because there was a point in time in my career where I was like, I don't know if this vet school thing is for me. Organic chemistry is right around the corner. It's looking really rough. I might just do the master's position. But she really helped me see that I could reach the goals that I wanted to reach. And not saying that a master's is a bad stopping point, but I came in with the intention of going to veterinary school. So seeing that I had the potential to do it and stick it out, and I passed organic chemistry, I passed every class that I've had so far, it really stuck with me and made me want to stay on the path to veterinary school.
I guess talking to this point, for anybody that has any affiliation with Purdue Animal Sciences will most likely know this gentleman, but a professor and our coordinator of career services, Barry Delks. We are totally blessed here at Purdue and in the animal sciences department to have 2 fully on-staff career advisors for our whole department. Their sole job is to help us as students better our resumes, network, work on those interviewing skills, and that's the professor who I work for and have been a TA for the past 3 years. But the way I got into that connection, I was in his office my freshman year. I just walked in and I said, Barry, I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. And he was like, Brandon, you're a freshman. I think you're okay. So working with him, establishing those connections early on, and I know we've hit this a lot over and over, whether it's working with graduate students or professors, they want to help you. They have all been in our shoes and they are serving in their current role, especially professors, because they have some knack for helping students, extension, research, whatever that is. And they truly want to help us as students. So knowing that and trying to get connected, plugged in with them as early on as possible, whether that's, can I wash dishes in your lab? And to get into their lab group, or whether that is, can I do a Zoom interview just to ask you how you got to your career point so far, and just kind of establishing that connection. For me, that started as my freshman year, freaking out, not knowing what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Never thought I'd go into the poultry industry. I have 0 poultry experience, but that's the path that I'm led down today, and trusting those advisors that I've called upon, and Barry Delk specifically, has really helped me get to the point that I am today.
Adding on to what Brandon was saying, the professors are a really good way to get into research if that's what you're interested in. If you're not, they'll get you into whatever sector that you're interested in. But I think that just making that connection is very, very important. Like I said, I've been involved in undergraduate research since I was a freshman, and sometimes it starts by just volunteering in their lab, like Brandon said. They want to see that commitment from you to see that you're interested in it, and then you'll be able to get that research experience and to see whether if that's something that you're interested in or not. And like you said, that graduate students are there for you to help you through this whole process, but personally for me, my advisor was a very, very big help to me in deciding what to do with graduate school. My lab environment is very, very family-like, so that was something that was really important to me when I was looking for a program, is kind of how the mentorship was going to be, whether he was like a hands-on professor or advisor or hands-off, or his expectations of me or how the lab worked together was really important. So just having a mentor to kind of help you through that process is very important. And speaking from NMSU is very good about getting undergraduates in labs and getting them that research experience to see if that's something that they're interested in. And I'm sure many other universities have programs for undergraduates to get involved in research. So I think that's something that could be good for any of you students that might have interest, to figure out whether you like it or not before you get to that point in your senior year.
So I think Dr. Casey is actually on this webinar, but I'm going to take a second to brag about her. So I joined her lab about 6 semesters ago now. And at first I was a little bit nervous to join because, one, I was at a time in my undergrad career where I wasn't sure if I wanted to do research, wanted to do master's, vet school, industry. I had literally no idea. So I was just trying everything out. And the setup of our lab is a little bit different. So she is actually distant and not on campus. So we have been doing Zoom meetings since I joined 3 years ago, which I'm actually really grateful for now, because I was a little bit more prepared than I think most people were heading into a pandemic. But I've just been really grateful for her because she has let me hang out in the lab for 3 years and has given me the opportunity to participate in multiple research studies. I've worked with dairy cattle, I've worked with pigs, I've worked with mice and cell tissue cultures. Some of those I was a little bit more excited for than others, but it was all a really great experience and really helped me kind of direct my path for where I'm heading after my undergrad experience, and just really getting to know her and kind of talk to her on not just a professional level, but also a like really personal level. Really helped me out. She has written a letter of recommendation for just about everything that I've applied to since joining her lab, and I like truly could not have gotten the internships and the graduate offers that I did get without her. And I think that being in the lab that I've been in the lab setting, and just kind of getting to see how everything works, really set the bar for what I was looking for in a graduate program. And so just kind of like being around her and learning from her and everyone else in the lab is really what led me to make the decisions that I have for my future.
I feel like I kind of have to chime in and kind of brag about my advisor as well. Dr. Marcus Miller has been a true blessing in my life. I have honestly, that man has seen me at my worst from the moment I got to Texas Tech. It was very intimidating. I had no family, no friends or anything in Texas. So I really, really leaned on Dr. Miller for essentially everything, whether it be to get around campus or to find, a Bible study group or meat studying or something. I relied on Dr. Miller for everything. And it's building that connection outside of school and like, hey, I just want like 5 minutes of your time, if that's okay, just to vent to you about my day. And he'd open his door and say, hey, yeah, go ahead. If you need a little crying session, go ahead. It's okay. And Dr. Miller has has gone above and beyond to help me find internships, opportunities to network with professionals, or anything that I needed. Recommendations letters are big for him. And it was something that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have if it wasn't for me reaching out and saying, hey, I truly need your help for this and this and this. And not only was my advisor amazing, but the grad students, I would reach out to them and say, hey, what are your thoughts on, I want to do this and this and this. And those grad students are honestly a resource that I feel are not very appreciated, because grad students are amazing and they are essentially people that have been in your shoes and they understand what you're going through and that mentality that you have right now and all the questions and the fears of, hey, is grad school worth it or not? And reaching out to those grad students and saying, hey, I want to do this and this and this. What's your advice? Or who do you think I need to talk to? And if it wasn't for grad students, I honestly wouldn't know Dr. Dale Warner, which I worked for undergrad, or other professors in Texas Tech that have been a huge help in my career. And just reaching out to those people, because like everyone has mentioned, they have been in your exact shoes. They know exactly what you're going through, and just reaching out and saying, hey, I know you're just my TA, like Jerica, she was my TA, and I wouldn't have known about all the amazing research that Dr. Bradley has done if it wasn't for her. It's just taking that short amount of time to type up that email or go to their office hours and say, hey, this is where I'm standing. This is my thoughts. What is your opinion, or who do you think I should talk to? And there's all these resources that y'all just should, just take the time to explore. Grad students, advisors, or even professors that you don't necessarily have a class with, but if you know that they work in an area that you want to explore, you feel that you have a connection to, go ahead and reach out and say, hey, I know I'm so-and-so and I'm really interested in what you do. What's your advice, or what's your recommendation for me to follow? And it'd be a huge help for y'all.
I think we have one more question that we are going to end with, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. So for students who are interested in staying in the animal science field, but not quite sure that vet school is what they want to do, what are things that you would recommend for maybe picking your direction, be it graduate school or staying within the industry?
So I think that I can answer this question. When I was coming to the end of my undergraduate career, and I was getting to a point where I needed to make some sort of decision, I was really grateful that I had taken the time throughout undergrad to really get experience in all different areas. So that way I knew that when I became a senior and it was getting time to apply to vet school, look into grad schools, apply to jobs in industry, I had enough experience in all of those areas to be confident sending in an application. For a master's, I had done research, I had done a bunch of hands-on animal experience for vet school, and had been involved in different industries, whether not necessarily industries, but different species within the animal science industry. So that way I was a little bit more prepared for different industry careers that I might apply for. So I would just really encourage people to really consider what they may be interested in. And it's okay if you absolutely cannot narrow it down to one, but just keep your options open and do that by networking and getting those different types of experiences.
I will quickly piggyback directly off what Kirsten said. Be open to other paths in the animal sciences field. Like I said, that's how I ended up in the poultry industry now. I do not have any poultry background other than laying hens at home, and I'm going into a broiler setting now. So being open to those opportunities, going where jobs may be available, being flexible. I have picked up multiple jobs while being a student. I currently have to work here in an hour and go shovel manure. That's something that I do, and connections that I still try to make. And so being open to those job experiences, as working for our career services department here, there's PERDUE, Purdue Chickens are offering sign-on bonuses, tuition relief, that type of stuff. So if there are options in that area, and that's something that you might want to look into, absolutely go and keep your options open. Do not limit yourself. That would be my suggestion in this scenario. Learn. I know I saw the question said something about animal behavior. With my horse training background, that's what I thought I would do someday. I thought I'd be a professional horse trainer, just like my dad, and that's what I was going to go into. But that isn't where I ended up. I saw that maybe the job market for that and the need for that in my hometown, in my home area, isn't exactly what's growing right now, but broiler chickens are growing, absolutely. And the company that I'm joining, they're putting up about 40 new barns that I'll be managing and kind of looking over. So that is kind of what not drug me, but helped get me into the career I am today. So just stay open.
Alrighty, I think that concludes all of our questions. I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our panelists for dedicating their time today, sharing their wisdom and their experiences. I know we've had a very diverse group of experiences here, and I'm incredibly appreciative for that. Thank you for sharing. I want to thank all of our attendees for coming today, as we had a really good turnout, and thank you so much for your time.